So what do I need at the top of my notes for today? The date for sure. So 9/2/21. Yes? And what's our topic? Perfect. Absolute value equations. Okay? So if it's okay with you, we're going to start out real simple today. Like real simple. That's good? Okay. So let's start out here. Absolute value of x equals 5. Now, this is like real simple in the fact that you can already tell me the answer, can't you? What is it? 5. Does anyone want to disagree with that? Besides me? Oh, can't it also be -5? Right? If I take the absolute value of 5, don't I get 5? So that part is correct, right? But what she said is, can't it also be -5? Do you agree with that? If I take the absolute value of -5, what do I get? Just 5. And does 5 equal 5? So yes. So this is super important for absolute value equations. Okay? For absolute value equations, we got to think 2. 2 problems, 2 answers. I know that it only looks like there's one problem, but we're smarter than the problem. Okay? So, first of all, let's get some steps written down so we can remember what's going on here. Okay? Step 1, when we're solving absolute value equations, is don't panic. For the record, that's going to be our step 1 for literally every problem that we do this year. Okay? Step 2, we need to isolate the absolute value. Isolate the absolute value. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean the absolute value is on one side of the equation and everything else is on the other side of the equation. Well, isn't that already done here? Write your 2 equations. Now, from what you just said, we should be able to write 2 equations, one being x equals 5 and one being x equals -5, right? I need you to trust me for a couple days. Okay? I'm going to write it a little bit different than that, and I think in a couple days you're going to understand why. Okay? I'll tell you right now, if you look at the examples in the book, that's exactly what it does. It writes x equals 5 and x equals -5. It changes this number over here. But is this the number that's actually changing, or is this the number that's actually changing? That one, right? And because I do it the way I do it, once we get to absolute value inequalities, it's going to be a lot easier. Are you guys better with seeing patterns, or are you guys better with memorizing rules? Patterns, right? Most people are way better at patterns. Literally nobody that I know wants to memorize rules. Okay? So I teach absolute value equations in such a way that absolute value inequalities are basically the same. But if you do it the other way, it's 2 different things and there's a bunch of rules you have to memorize. So can you just trust me for a couple days? In the beginning, it's going to look like we're doing extra work. I just need you to get over that. Okay? So, here's our 2 equations. My first equation is, whatever's inside, I just pull it straight out. Whatever it is, I pull it straight out, equals whatever's over there. So in this case, 5. My second equation is whatever's inside is negative. I'm going to write a negative and a parenthesis, and whatever's inside is going to go in the parenthesis. Equals whatever it equals. Okay? Now, is there anything left for me to do on this side of the equation? No, that's solved for, right? That's one of our answers. Is there anything left to do on this side of the equation? Yes, I can't have a negative x. What I'm solving for is actual x, right? So I can either divide both sides by -1 or multiply both sides by -1, right? Do you care? Okay, so let's divide both sides by -1. Negative 1 divided by negative 1, that simplifies to just 1, so I just have an x. And on the right-hand side, I just have negative 5. And there's nothing else I can do to simplify that, is there? Now, are these correct? Are you positive? Okay? Because it's so easy, right? But if it was harder, is there a way we could be absolutely sure? Couldn't I plug it in? Like substitute the answers I get back to the original problem? Okay, so 5. What's the absolute value of 5? Does 5 equal 5? Okay, what about this one? What's the absolute value of negative 5? Just 5, right? Does 5 equal 5? Yeah, so I am now positive that those are the right answers, right? So the good news is if you are checking your work like you should literally never get these wrong. That's good for a test, right? Okay, excellent. Ready for another example? Okay, here's the next example. Oh, wait. Let's go and make sure we have all our steps. Solve each equation. And what do you think step 5 should be? Check your answer. Absolutely right. God bless you. Absolute value of x plus 6 equals 9. Now this one's a little bit different, isn't it? Because there's something else inside the absolute value. Do I have to care about that? Not yet, right? Okay, so first step. Don't panic. Are we all? What? It's an absolute value. This is an absolute value. This is an absolute value. Okay? So have we all succeeded in step 1? Okay. Step 2, isolate the absolute value. Is this absolute value by itself? Yes, because there's nothing being multiplied, divided, added, or subtracted to the absolute value. Okay? I don't have to care yet what's inside. I need to make sure there's nothing on the outside on this same side as the absolute value. Does that make sense? Okay? Now, write 2 equations. What's my first equation? Whatever's inside equals 9. What's my second equation? The opposite of whatever's inside. Negative times x plus 6 equals 9. Next step, solve each equation. Well, there's something to do here now, right? How do I solve for x? Subtract 6 from both sides. X equals 3. What do I do on this side over here? So I have 2 choices at this point, don't I? I could either distribute this negative sign through to each term, or I could divide both sides by negative 1. Does it matter? No. Do you care? So is it okay if I just divide by negative 1? Because that's kind of what we did before, right? There is times that distributing it through is actually smarter. Okay? Maybe I'll see if I can come up with one of those examples to show you. Okay? So here, negative 1 divided by negative 1, that simplifies to 1, and I'm just left with x plus 6 equals negative 9. To solve for x, subtract 6 on both sides, x equals perfect. Negative 15. So now I've solved each equation. Now I need to check my answers. 3 plus 6. What's the absolute value of 9? 9. Does 9 equal 9? Then that one is correct. What about this one? Negative 15 plus 6. Negative 9. What's the absolute value of negative 9? 9. Does 9 equal 9? Perfect. Then both of these are correct. Okay. Now, one of the things that I forgot to show you on this example up here, one of the things you're going to have to do on your homework is now graph these on a number line. I'm not going to show you how to do that because you've been doing that since 4th grade? 5th grade? like a number line's there, you have to put your mouse or your clicker on 3 and like click, and a dot shows up. You good with that? Okay. All right, let me see if I can think about this in my head real fast. How about negative x? Ooh, I'm going to add something different. Ooh, you better watch out. Negative x plus 4 minus 5 equals 7. Ooh. What's step 1? Don't panic. Are we all good? Step 2. Is the absolute value isolated? Because if I cover up the absolute value, there's still something on this side of the equal sign, isn't there? So I have to get rid of that first. How do I get rid of it? Oh, perfect. Add 5 to both sides. Now I have the absolute value of negative x plus 4 equals 12. Is the absolute value isolated now? Yes. Next step? 2 equations. What's my first equation? Whatever's inside, bring it down. Negative x plus 4 equals 12. What's my second equation? Negative parenthesis, whatever's inside. Does everybody understand how to get both equations? Yes. Now, solve each equation. How do I solve this on the left-hand side? Subtract 4 from both sides. Negative x equals 8. Is it done? Oh, okay, perfect. Divide both sides by negative 1. X equals negative 8. Okay? What about this side? Well, before, every time we divided both sides by a negative, right? Could I still do that? Yes, right? But what would happen if I distributed this negative 1 to each term here? It would be a positive x, right? Wouldn't that be nice? So let's distribute this negative 1 into each term this time. X minus 4 equals 12. Add 4 to both sides. X equals 16. Last step. Check. Okay. A negative 8. So 8 plus 4. 12. Absolute value of 12? 12. 12 minus 5? Does 7 equal 7? Yes. Okay. Negative 16 plus 4. Negative 12. What's the absolute value of negative 12? 12 minus 5? Does 7 equal 7? In every universe I've lived in, which for the record is 1. Yeah. That I know of. Okay. Okay so far? One more example. You ready? Okay. I'm going to try to trick you on this example. I'm telling you ahead of time. I'm going to try to trick you. Don't be tricked. Negative 2, absolute value of 2x plus 8 equals 12. What do you think we should do first? Don't panic. Are we good? Okay, what should we do next? Isolate the absolute value. Is it isolated? No. What do I have to do to isolate it? Divide both sides by negative 2. Very good. Dividing both sides by negative 2 on the left-hand side, this simplifies to 1. So I'm left with the absolute value of 2x plus 8 equals negative 6. What now? 2 equations, okay? First equation is 2x plus 8 equals negative 6. Second equation is okay. And now solve each one, right? So subtract 8 from both sides. 2x equals negative 14. If I divide both sides by 2, I get x equals negative 7. Did I do all the steps right? Okay. What happens over here? What should I do? Should I distribute or should I divide? Probably divide, right? If I divide both sides by negative 1, that gives me 2x plus 8 equals 6. If I subtract 8 from both sides, I get 2x equals negative 2. Dividing both sides by 2 gives me x equals negative 1. Did I do all my steps right? Okay, last step. Okay, so back to the original, so the negative 2 is still there, right? Okay, so 2 times negative 7, negative 14. Negative 14 plus 8, negative 6. Absolute value of negative 6. 6 times negative 2. Negative 12. Does negative 12 equal 12? Maybe the other one works? 2 times negative 1. Negative 2. Negative 2 plus 8. 6. Absolute value of 6. 6 times negative 2. Does negative 12 equal 12? Did I do all the steps right? I did, didn't I? You remember what I told you right at the beginning of this problem? I was going to try to trick you. I did. I'm sorry, not sorry. Okay? Because hopefully this will help you remember what the trick is. Okay? We did step 1 correct. We didn't panic. We did step 2 correct by isolating the absolute value. Everything after that's wrong. Because, not that we did any steps wrong, but once we got here, tell me please, what number can we get out of here, the absolute value sign, that will equal a negative 6? Will I ever get anything out of the absolute value sign that equals a negative anything? No. So once we got here, I could have come over here to the side and written no solution. Now, we didn't do anything bad by practicing our stuff because we knew it was the wrong answer when we got done because we followed all our steps and plugged them in and knew we were wrong. Right? See what I'm saying? What I'm saying is if you'll pay attention to what you're doing as you're going, you're not going to have to do this extra stuff right here. Does that make sense? Okay? But that also brings up the important step of checking your work every time. Right? We want to check our work every time. Okay? Now, this sometimes causes people to panic. Even though step 1 is don't panic. Okay? Because they get answers like this and they're like, oh, that's wrong, it's negative, can't do it. Guys, just because it's negative, does that mean it's wrong? No, absolutely not. We plugged that in and it was right. We plugged that in and it was right. It's just the fact that when we got our absolute value isolated, it equaled a negative number. That's the part that causes it to be no solution. Not just because there's generally a negative number. You know what I'm saying? It's the fact that the absolute value equals a negative number that causes it to be no solution. So that means this step is important. Okay? All the way through. I know we put it first, but it should actually be in between every one, right? Just in case. Are there any questions about this?